kind of guy who will love you all over. And you're just the kind of girl who makes love undercover. I'm just the kind of guy who will love you all over. And you're just the kind of girl who could watch me keel over. I wanna be your number one. The tide is high, but I'm moving on. I wanna be your number
Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the 4th branch program, the place for common sense. Today we continue the conversation about the race to 2020. As we have been doing for the past few days, each and every day we feature a candidate vying for the office of the presidency. Today we are going to feature for you Marianne Williamson as one Democrat candidate vying for the nomination of the Democrat Party and eventually to take on Donald Trump. We will also take a look at an important topic. In 2016, Donald Trump became the 45th president of the United States. Most analysis done beyond that date, that fateful November 6th, reveals that the pollsters were completely wrong. They were, for the first time, they did not see that coming. Of course, we know that nobody did, not even Donald Trump himself, knew there was any possibility for him to become president of the United States. But here at the Fourth Branch, we found a very startling revelation as to whether there was any mistake done by the pollster, and we will talk a little bit about that. We will also take a quick look at the state of the situation in the country, the state of chaos, and what's causing that. Of course, most people point fingers to Donald Trump. Today, we will show you that although Mr. Trump has his share of responsibility for the state of chaos in the country, but Donald Trump is not is not even the major culprit behind the state of chaos. So stay with me for a moment. After an announcement, we will take a quick look at those topics. You are on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. In addition to many other factors, information overload is a major problem in individuals who are trying to make a decision as to whom to vote for, whom to send to a particular post, be it state or to Washington. In 2016, the country, especially the world, as a matter of fact, was shocked because nobody saw Donald Trump becoming president of the United States. And that wasn't an anomaly. That wasn't and no one can attribute this shocking result, this shocking outcome, to anything that was done on the part of Donald Trump. Now, many have, after the election, the pollsters in particular, try to explain what may have happened, what could have happened, why did they get it so wrong, and there is no lack of explanation for that. But one thing that also is certain, as I mentioned earlier, not a single soul on the face of this planet, not even the Donald Trump camp, expected to win the election. Yes, you heard correctly. Not even Donald Trump expected to. In fact, I wrote a couple of articles before, a few months prior to the actual election, and I made the case that Donald Trump did not even want to become president. The bidding for the presidency of the United States was simply an opportunity for him to display his brain on a national stage, international, if you like. And anybody who knows Donald Trump would know that the presidency could not possibly, becoming president of the United States could not possibly been attractive to Donald Trump. And we know that because he's all about money, and we know how much a president of the United States makes. And in the beginning of the process, of course, Donald Trump looked at it as, why would I want to be president? It doesn't pay. But the bottom line is, after the election, Donald Trump became president of the United States, and as we have been witnessing, he has been taking advantage of his position to continue to advance his personal agenda. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I must also mention that here at the Fourth Branch, we're not associated with any political party. What that means is we are free to talk about either party, but as a human being, it is expected that we have our own bias. We try to contain it by providing facts in order for you to be able to figure out which way to go. But occasionally or frequently, you may not necessarily like what we say because it's not going to be beneficial to your party, it's not going to be beneficial to your views, or you may simply don't like, you prefer to hear people who support your views, who think the same way you do. This is not the purpose of the Fourth Branch. Our purpose, as we mentioned, is to perfect the union. And to do that, we have to remove what's preventing that from happening, usually, and the major factor is ignorance. So we try to do that, and sometimes we get excited trying to do exactly that. But the bottom line is, Democrat or Republican, the ultimate goal is really to remove ignorance, because ignorance is actually a major factor to any democracy. We have already seen it. Many before us said it. JFK said it, George Washington said it, Martin Luther King said it. Ignorance is not a tool to use in anything. However, it is being used today. But let's get back to the topic at hand. So after Donald Trump became the 45th president, pollsters were poring over data and trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. They even thought that they dropped the ball, but they did not. Nobody dropped the ball. But I'm going to show you exactly what happened. And I'm also a little bit apprehensive because I'm not certain whether that can be repeated in 2020. Because what happened in 2016, why nobody saw the election of Donald Trump as the 45th president, it seems that a number of factors, a number of scenarios are taking shape that tell me we may be moving forward to seeing a repeat of what had happened in 2016. And once I expose the truth, then it will become pretty obvious as to, can we really be heading towards a repeat of 2016? Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. In 2016, the outcome shocked the world, shocked the nation, and left Democrats reeling for a defeat that most could not predict, could not foresee. But it happened. For probably now several decades, the pollsters have always tried to get a sense as to where a particular election, whether it's state or federal, national, and for presidential election in particular, you can pretty much rest assured that during the campaigning, primaries, and so on, pollsters are very busy talking to constituents, crisscrossing the nation, or using phone, the internet, any type of medium that they have, in order to collect information from different groups with different interests, in order to gauge the possibility of one candidate over another winning the election. And before Donald Trump, they were quite accurate, well, more or less. But with Donald Trump, everything changed, and everybody left scratching the head and trying to figure out, how could we get that so wrong? Well, they did not. We spent the last 2 years doing the same thing the pollsters were doing, crisscrossing the country, but with a different prism. And what we found tell us that the pollsters weren't wrong at all. Now, here's what happened. When Donald Trump made the announcement for the presidency of the United States, nobody took him seriously. In fact, the very manner in which he made the announcement was a joke. Everyone simply shrugged him up and didn't pay much attention. In fact, Donald Trump himself didn't pay much attention to Donald Trump. That's why he was so free to say whatever came to his mind, and he didn't care what happened because he did not vie for the office of the presidency. But as someone who has been using this important tool, the media, to get free marketing, so he used the media once again to further his brand. So what he said did not matter to him, did not matter to anyone. In the beginning, as it was pretty obvious, most individuals, most people stay away from Donald Trump. In fact, everybody that you talk to, Republicans, even those today that are so gun-ho about Donald Trump, they're always saying, no way, there is no way we're going to take someone so vulgar, someone so dumb, someone so ignorant, someone so stupid to vote for as president of the United States. They don't remember that today, but that was the state of affairs. Everybody stayed away from Donald Trump. In fact, I remember that very clearly because at the very beginning of the process, in fact, right after Donald Trump made the announcement to bid for the presidency of the United States, I published an article which actually provided support for Donald Trump candidacy. There was not. The only people who were with Donald Trump were a close family member and a few friends. In fact, you may recall when Donald Trump said he was going to fund his own campaign, just for sake of conversation, he put the money up front, but he did get that money back. He didn't fund his campaign. It was like lending money to the campaign and then at the end take it in the back end. That's what Donald Trump has been doing all his life. So he's very good at those things. Now, nobody had the courage to give an interview and put their face out there and say they were going to support Donald Trump. I saw a very different angle of Mr. Trump candidacy. That's why I wrote a few articles that actually gave credence to the fact that it was a good thing for Donald Trump to bid to be a candidate for the presidency. You can read that on the peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org, I believe. If you go to the peoplebranch.org, you can search for articles about Donald Trump for the 2016 presidential election. You will find that I most likely was the first one, if it's not the only one, who actually gave support to the candidacy of Donald Trump. Now I say all that because since I've been doing this program, because I've been critical of Donald Trump, a lot of his supporters seem to think that, oh, this damn liberal, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I supported the Donald Trump candidacy when none of those people who today are so gung-ho would not even put their face out there to say that they would vote for Donald Trump. And that was at the early stage, and for good reason, by the way, because not only Donald Trump does not have any qualification, but also is vulgar, is all the attributes that would make someone less of a human. Donald Trump cultivates that. So it was for a good reason people stay away from him. But because of that, and Donald Trump never changed. During the campaign, it got worse, worse, and worse, and worse. He attacked every single group. He attacked every individual that he could find on his path. So two things were happening. The media was giving Donald Trump free marketing by always opening the microphone at any point in time that Donald Trump called. They would, even if he weren't in the program, and I used to blame Matt Lauer for that, to be someone who supposed to control his program as an anchor, and he was always open to have Donald Trump call in and say whatever he wanted and never get challenged, and he could say whatever came to his mind, and it was free marketing. But that aside, so when the pollster went out there to interview people, or they question people, whether it's online or via phone, they get the answer that those people gave the answer that they know the world expected. And what was that? Donald Trump was a vulgar individual. We would not support that, and you don't want to be on record saying you're going to support Donald Trump. The religious one, the conservative one, everybody that claimed to have certain values, and that was the problem. Because they're Christian, they go to church, and they're looking at that guy that had a foul mouth, a dirty mouth, that's a con man, that's doing bad things to people. You don't really want to associate yourself with that individual. So when they get interviewed, all the polls, all the surveys that were done, and those people were very conscious of that. So they gave the answer that they know that the public expected. People with a certain degree of morality, people with certain degree of ethics would expect someone who call himself or herself religious leaders, someone who call himself conservative, someone who claim to have family values. It was pretty obvious that you would not want to put on your answer that I'm supporting Donald Trump. So they gave the pollster the answer that they know the world expected, which is, oh no way, we're not gonna vote for Donald Trump. Of course, you had quite a few daring individuals, as you saw that as time marched on, Donald Trump rallies became larger, more boisterous, raunchier. So yes, there were plenty of those people who didn't have any problem saying yes, they were going to vote for Donald Trump. But the majority of those who claim to be religious, who claim to have family values, people who want to portray a certain degree of decency, a certain lifestyle of ethics and morality, would not want to associate themselves with Donald Trump. So they did not. So the pollster walk away with information that clearly tells them there is no chance in the world that Donald Trump could become the next president of the United States. So the pollsters didn't get anything wrong. The people who answered them deceived them, got them the wrong answer. So it wasn't the pollster's fault that the information, the data they collected, those data were properly collected. But the individual who felt so ashamed that to associate themselves with Donald Trump at that time decided to answer, no way, we're not going to. No, I mean, I'm a religious man, I go to church, I'm a pastor, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a conservative, I have families, I have children, I would never do something like that. They gave that kind of answer because they don't want, they could not, they knew that it was a shameful thing to stand behind Donald Trump. It was shameful to support Donald Trump. And yet, so they lied to the pollster, but they went to the poll and voted for Donald Trump. So the pollster have nothing to worry about in terms of their method, their strategy. Now, unless when someone lies to you, that's a different story. But if you have to rely on their answers, then there is not much pollster can do. Because if I ask you, did you do this? And you say no, now unless I'm a psychic or I can go through and see you in action doing exactly the thing that you said no you didn't do, there is no way for me to find that out. So the pollsters did not do anything wrong. They weren't wrong. It's the constituent who lied to them about the opposition because they were ashamed to be supporting an individual such as Donald Trump. Which brings me to this very question that I try to ask Republicans in general whenever I have conversation with my fellow Republican. And that should scare everybody here in the nation, because if you had enough people who were so ashamed of associating themselves with Donald Trump, and I say ashamed because they were ashamed, they would not say they would vote for Donald Trump. And the reason they would not say that is because they were ashamed that someone would see them as an individual with no value, an individual with no ethics, with no sense of decency. So they dissociated themselves from Donald Trump publicly, and yet they went and voted for him. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, what kind of people what kind of person is an individual who can clearly see that the person that they support, the person that they are about to vote for, they are not even willing to let other people know that because they're ashamed of that individual. That should tell you a lot about who elected Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And that's why I keep asking the question to my fellow Republican. Would you use Donald Trump as a role model for your children? Now, just the same it was during the 2016, there were a sizable number of people who couldn't care less. In fact, they like vulgar people. They like people without decency. They like people who are crooks. They support those people. That's why they had their support behind Donald Trump. Because when you think about it, everything about Donald Trump is public record. It's not an individual saying Donald Trump is a crook. Those documents are readily available, legal document, court document. So nobody is accusing Donald Trump of something that is not. He's a crook, and they have document to prove that. He's a con man, and they have document to prove that. While President of the United States, hundreds of people sue Donald Trump for the university that he created and stole those people money. Those are not speculation. Those are recorded information that are readily available for anyone who wants it. So they know Donald Trump is a liar. They voted for him. They know Donald Trump simply is not a competent individual. They voted for him. So the pollster has nothing. The pollster have nothing to beat themselves up for, because they did not do anything that made their prediction, their polls wrong. Instead, they were deceived by people who were ashamed of associating themselves with Donald Trump and give them the wrong answer. Now, I could have said I suspected that all along, but you know, in journalism, you have to find those information and try to prove that's the case, because that's what we have in networks such as Fox, where they just say whatever comes to their mind, and they don't care. But it is something that I would venture to say that during the time I was writing for the 2016 presidential election, I even alluded to the fact that those people were blindly following someone who would not be good for the country. Now, I say blindly at that time, but today it is pretty clear as they weren't blind at all. They were ashamed to associate themselves with Trump, and yet they went to the poll and voted for him. So pollsters, keep doing the job you're doing, because your job was accurate, as accurate as it has been for many decades. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the fear that I have is this: you start having a number of people who again have begun to dissociate themselves with Donald Trump. Those were people who fully supported and voted for him, but they start saying those same thing again. Now, there is no way of knowing whether they have repented because they sinned what they didn't want to admit the first time, or they were ashamed to admit the first time, or they simply saying that in order to do a repeat of 2016. So if you are a pollster, those are the kind of thing you should watch out for, because there is no way of knowing. You cannot get into individuals' head to figure out whether they're telling the truth or not. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. to keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. If you join us for the first time, welcome. You are on the Fourth Branch program, The Place for Common Sense. I would encourage you to visit the People Branch YouTube channel. This is where we have many of our previous programs archived. You can follow the step on the screen. And when you get to the channel, you can browse through for the video, or you can search for particular topics. We've been debating a lot of different topics since we started this program. And while you're there, do not forget to subscribe. That will provide us the opportunity to send you an invite, to send you update, and to also keep you abreast of activities on the Fourth Branch front. When we return, we will talk about Marianne Williamson, candidate for the presidency of the United States. Who is Marianne Williamson? Well, contrary to all other candidates we featured before, Marianne Williamson has never held, well, actually I shouldn't say contrary to, because there are other candidates who have been business people but have not held a public office yet. She was born in Houston, Texas in July of 1952. In 2014, she declared herself to be quote unquote a Democratic independent. So she's kind of a Bernie Sanders style type of Democrat, I suppose. Now, Marianne Williamson is known for writing books, mostly spiritual books. She has written just for 13 books, including these a few New York Times #1 bestsellers. We'll get to that in just a moment. Marianne Williamson is the founder of a project called Project Angel Food. It is a project which does food delivery for people homebound, people who cannot really move about people with AIDS, for instance, people with life-threatening illnesses, people who may not necessarily have family members helping them. So the Project Angel Food would step in and help those people. Marianne Williamson also is a co-founder of the Peace Alliance. It's a non-profit grassroots education and advocacy organization that she found it necessary to become part of this project. In 2014, Marianne did try to wet his feet in public service. He ran to become the California 33rd, to represent rather the California 33rd Congressional District, but it was not a successful run, so she did not make it. Now, she did go to school in well, at least she graduated in high school at Bel Air High School in I believe it's in Houston, Texas, maybe. And she also, after that, spent a couple of years studying theater and philosophy at Pomona College, that's in Claremont, California. But Mrs. Williamson, or Miss Williamson, did not finish college. She dropped out in her junior year, and she I believe she left for New York. That's where she was trying to get into, I guess, maybe the entertainment business. She was a singer at I think a cabaret singer at that time. I guess she probably didn't make it there. In any event, Mrs. Williamson published a book. What was the name of that book? I think it was A Return to Love. The name of the book was A Return to Love, and that was published in the 1990s, in 1992, if I'm not mistaken. And that book actually was a New York Times bestseller. According to a record, that particular book stayed as a New York Times bestseller for 39 weeks, almost 40 weeks. So we're talking about 10 months, really? Is it? Yeah, close to 10 months, I guess. 39 weeks. We have four weeks per month, approximately. Yeah, almost 10 months. She was her book, Return to Love, spent 10 months as New York Times bestseller. Now, there is something that may have helped her. She was featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and I guess that definitely was helpful. After that, she published 12 other books, and I believe that a couple of those books also became bestseller. Now, the book that's of some importance to us is a book she published that's titled Healing the Soul of America. Healing the Soul of America. I think that particular book, I'm not sure why that particular book itself, but it was translated in Spanish. I think she published that book in 2018. That was last year. just pretty recent. She published Healing the Soul of America. Maybe that was in preparation for bidding for the presidency of the United States. I guess that probably would make sense, because most people who actually vie for the presidency, most of the time they would publish a book prior to making the announcement. Maybe it's a way for them to crisscrossing the country and meeting new people, and not only telling them about the book, but also kind of get a sense of where people are, so that they can decide whether to bid for the presidency or not. So it is my sense maybe that was the plan, that Miss Marianne Williamson must have looked at that, the publication, publishing of this book not only coincide with the idea of bidding for the presidency of the United States. Now, what does Williamson has for America? What exactly? What is her great idea? What does she think? Where is she heading in terms of, if she were to become the nominee? What can we expect? What should we expect from her? Well, as I mentioned, Marianne Williamson has never held a public office before. She tried to, she ran in 2014 to represent the 33rd district in the state of California, but she wasn't successful. So all of her career has been pretty much in the publication industry, because she published 13 books. That's a lot of achievement, and all of them are spiritual in nature. Williamson, Miss Williamson, is 66 years old. As I pointed out earlier, she didn't finish college. She dropped out after when she was in junior year, and to pursue a career in, I guess, as a cabaret singer, and there I guess it's safe to assume that she did not make it either, because obviously she must have given up that idea for other aspect of her life, mainly writing. Miss Williamson support a Medicare for all model. You may recall that Bernie Sanders has been promoting that idea, and it seems that most Democrats are on board with the idea of Medicare for all. She also has her own idea. She supports a universal preschool and free college. Now, the universal preschool, you may recall that president after president have had some sort of universal preschooling under different names. For instance, I think George Bush had No Child Left Behind. Was it George Bush? I think so. So each president has come up with a way to make certain that the children get some form of education, at least even before reaching college age. Miss Williamson also support the Green New Deal. You may recall that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have been promoting that idea, the Green New Deal, which is some sort of effort to prepare for the possibility that we may have a climate problem in our society, and in order to minimize the impact that we have on the planet, start moving towards the idea of using less and less resources that's causing our planet to suffer climate change. Miss Williamson also, her idea on immigration, that she support DACA, and she also support a full path to citizenship. It seems that in other areas, such as, for instance, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, she seems to be more for the idea of a two-state solution, the idea of the Palestine being able to live, to coexist with Israel. But obviously, we see that this is not working. And also, one of I don't know if it's any more controversial, because a number of candidates have been floating the idea of something called reparation. That's to pay African American, especially those who descendant of slave, some sort of not compensation, if you like, because I kind of see the idea of reparation for blacks not necessarily give money, actual money to, but pave the way, remove the obstacles that's been put along the way, preventing blacks from achieving, from getting anywhere, or to be able to remove all those obstacles with the reparation money. In my mind, that's the way I see any form of reparation, not necessarily give money. Now, granted, there are some aspects of reparation that may call for that, because the number of blacks who are poor, who cannot make it further, is because, yes, their ancestors were slaves and they never could get out of that vicious cycle of poverty. So yes, there may be some way of remedying to that predicament, and Miss Williamson is very much for that. Now, she did lay out her own ideas as to how that should be done. For her is a $10 billion per year distributed over a 10-year period. I'm not sure by distributed if she meant distributing the cash, but in any event, it's an idea for now, because a lot of people are talking about it, but nobody knows yet as to how that's gonna be. If that's even accepted, adopted, and signed by the legislative body, and how that's gonna be implemented. That's something really to watch, because a lot of candidates seems to be on board with the idea. When we come back, we'll read just a quick excerpt of how Miss Williamson feel about healing the soul of America.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. Miss Williamson want to heal the soul of America. Now, before we talk about that, let's just point out her big idea. You may recall that for every candidate we have already talked about. We present to you the candidate big idea. What exactly do they want to do if they become the nominee for the Democrat Party? What will they do? Now, for Miss Williamson, the big idea is what I just mentioned earlier. She wants the project of reparation for black slaves, and her idea is to have a $10 billion over 10 years distributed to those who were impacted by slavery. Now, again, we don't know how that's gonna be. What kind of plan she has in mind as far as distributing that money. But we also have to ask the question as to whether she can use that as a rallying theme to get people excited to support her. Now, there is also a note that I must point out to you before we read from Miss Williamson, is the fact that up to this point, it is not certain that Miss Williamson will or can make the cut, because the first debate for the 2020 presidential election, the first primary debate among the Democrats, will take place in June in Florida, and the Democrat Party already has some condition for candidate to participate, and one of the conditions is for the candidate to be able to raise a certain amount of money. I'm not certain about the actual sum, the actual amount, but you have to be able to raise a certain amount of money. And as it stands today, on Miss Williamson website, which is Marianne2020.com, it seems that she has not reached that amount yet, because she's still short of almost 15,000 people to provide some sort of contribution in order to make that cut. So if she does not meet that simple condition, she will not participate in the debate, which is already a big disadvantage for any candidate. So we'll watch to see what transpires. She still has a little bit of time. Since April, May, of course, June, we will communicate the date as once we aware of that particular date. Once we get that information, we will communicate the date to you. But we will shortly talk about one of the what you would call her approach to healing the soul of America. What does Miss Williamson think needs to be done in order to heal the soul of America? Let me read a quick passage for you as to how Miss Williamson think that using spiritual may be a way to heal the soul of America. America is in a broken state today. But what has been broken can be repaired. That is true in our personal lives, and it is true in the life of our country. But only where there is deep and real and honest taking stock of what's happening can what's happening be fundamentally changed. Deep and real and honest are not words we always associate with American politics, and until that changes, then as a country we will not emerge from the time of crisis we are living through. We need a new political conversation now and a new kind of political leadership. To lead this process, we need a political visionary more than we need a political mechanic. American politics today is disconnected from the heart. Our economic system is disconnected from the heart. Our criminal justice system is disconnected from the heart. Our educational system is disconnected from the heart. Our national security agenda is disconnected from the heart. And where there is no heart, there is no wisdom. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social-political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. I hope this presentation was of some use. If you have comments, criticism, suggestion, do not hesitate to send it our way. We'd like to hear from you. Should you have a topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. The race to 2020 is not just another presidential election. Remember, your health is on the ballot. Your health care is on the ballot. I hope to see you again tomorrow at 2 p.m., in which time we will again feature another candidate for the presidency of the United States. We will also take a look at the gun culture in America and why the GOP legislators fully responsible for the state of chaos in the nation. I hope you have a good afternoon. Until next time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
who will love you all over. And you're just the kind of girl who make love undercover. I'm just the kind of guy